Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Um, Today, we are back with another recap and review of 100 Days to Indy. This time, we're into episode four, um, which was titled Stay on Track. And this one, we got a little bit of the race at Barber and a little bit of like other drivers we haven't seen yet, some home life stuff, just, people they have yet to talk to, which I thought was kind of nice. It had like a good balance. Okay, so the first kind of thing that we saw was Will Power, who I think for as long as we've seen him in IndyCar, the past like year, we've really seen like a different version of him. He's much more, I don't know, kind of relaxed and chill. Like he still has like that willpower fire and he's still, kind of the same in that way, but he's very much just kind of like, yes, less likely to fight someone on every corner like, he used to be. Um I've always, kind of been a fan, so it's nice to see that. I really think they did a great job because they showcased a little bit the health issues that Will's wife Liz has been dealing with over the past couple of months, and I think they did that in a really kind way. It wasn't like dramatized, it was just like, kind of their story and what happened and how he's been taking care of her and how they've, kind of adjusted their lives. And I think it was handled very well, and it was really, really sweet to see just kind of like because we've obviously seen their relationship for a while and how she is at the racetrack with her water bottles and her stress and all that, but to see kind of like this other layer of their relationship where he's taking care of her and it's very like soft and kind, and it was just very sweet. So but you guys know that, like, the family stuff, I love like the behind the scenes with that. So we had that, and then um there was a section which I actually kind of appreciated because, you see all of these teams, there's always new teams, new drivers kind of every season that pop up, but you don't always get the full kind of like look at the team and all that stuff. So we did get that. They started that off with a section about um, Augustine Canapino, who I actually just before this I was watching Indy 500 practice, and he had some speed. Like if he can carry the speed that he had today, that put him like 13th or something into qualifying, he might be one to watch in the 500. Um, so he is the one of the two drivers for Hunko's Hollinger, and I actually didn't know because he's rookie this year. I didn't know anything about him prior to this, but he is a 15-time touring car champion in South America, which is incredibly impressive. It is like a whole different animal to IndyCar, which is why I always think it's so like it is always super impressive when drivers can come from a completely different discipline to IndyCar and, pick it up quick, because he has picked it up very quickly. Um, and he's had a pretty strong start to his, you know, IndyCar career. Um, from that, we saw a little piece on his team owner, Ricardo, and pardon my distraction, loud noises outside. Um, I think all of my neighbors, they just somehow know when I'm gonna start streaming, and then they just turn on like every lawnmower and like power washer that they own. I'm just like, cool. So, um, there was a piece on Ricardo, and kind of the cool thing about the two of them is they both, came from Argentina, and um, they had kind of like a connection before where Canapino's dad knew Ricardo and, you know, wanted it was kind of like his dream for his son to be able to like do something with him and like go race in the States. And unfortunately, his dad's not around anymore, but the fact that he's, getting to do that and they're getting to do it together, I thought was like a really sweet kind of moment. But what I didn't know, which was everything about Ricardo, is kind of how he had lost everything in Argentina. It was not, like a great place to live. So he took all of his money that he had, which was enough to buy a plane ticket to Miami. He came over, he started his team in karting, and then in 2017 moved up to IndyCar. And I think the growth since then has been great because now he has a two-car team because Callum Ilott drives for him as well. And they definitely have like the potential to do some stuff. It's not just like one of those, you know, teams that pop up once or twice a year close to the Indy 500 and you're like, okay. It's like they've started to do something. And yeah, they might be a small team, but people are starting to look, and I think it's great. Um, Something else that we saw after that, which I know was kind of like a hot button thing on Twitter. I certainly had my opinions about it. We saw Dixie and Pato talking about their incident from Long Beach. And, they have obviously very different opinions of what happened and who was, right and who was wrong. I, obviously I saw it live when it happened and then I watched it again on the show. I'm just gonna agree with Dixie. Pato was in the wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He didn't handle that very well. And I agree with him 100%. And I said it then. The stewards didn't make any sort of call on it, and they should have. Like, that was just one of those things where it's like, are we sure? Are we sure that we're, ruling this series the way we should be? Um, because, from that you kind of get, well, if things like this so blatant are going to happen and they're not going to call on it, they're not going to make a ruling, then that opens it up for people to be like, just, well, we can just do whatever we want and race however we want. And they're better than that. That's not what IndyCar is. So, it's one of those things where it's like, we don't want to start the epidemic of just shooting a guy into a corner and it being okay. Um, let's see. So this was a very kind of willpower heavy episode. So they went back to him, and something I didn't actually know about him is he was very candid in talking about how there was a while when he had like severe anxiety surrounding racing. And it was kind of in that time, like early to mid like 2010s, when it was kind of a dangerous sport. There was a couple, you know, really bad crashes that took some drivers from us, and that's, hard for him. Those are his friends. It's really hard to see that happen to your friends and then want to get back into the car and, keep driving and keep going. Um, and he said he wanted to quit. There was times when he absolutely wanted to quit. Like the thought of getting in that car and starting a race was just the worst thing he could possibly imagine. And the reason that he kept going was Liz. She, he said, that in that moment, she knew him better than he knew himself. And, she even said herself that she knew that if he could get in there and start the race, that it would save him and it would kind of bring him out of whatever this was. And it did, which I think we're all kind of grateful for because he is in, the top of the list of one of the greatest IndyCar drivers. Um, and in that package, they showed his 2018 Indy 500 one, which was a little emotional. I always get like a little bit emotional seeing those things. Um, but it just kind of goes to show that, you really never know what drivers go through because you kind of have an idea of like, oh, like this may be hard or that may be hard or whatever. Like, yes, there are going to be ups and downs, but there have been times when racing has not been great. It was not super safe for a while. Um, and I think sometimes it's easy to just kind of like move on from that and be like, yeah, that's sad that that happened, but but it's so different from a driver's standpoint. And so I really appreciate him opening up about that because it's not an easy thing to talk about. Like, no one ever really wants to be like, I'm going to shine a light on like the darkest, like the worst parts of myself or like things that happened. So I always appreciate when people are willing to do that because I think it's important. Um, and then from there, they went to Barber for qualifying, and Grosjean was on the pole for that, his second pole of the year. Um, I forgot what I was going to say. Um, let's see. Probably wasn't that important if I can't remember it. So from qualifying Grosjean on the pole, we went to race day, and obviously Liz is not back to like full health yet, or she wasn't when they filmed this, so she was watching at home. And I think, have been getting the absolute best like sound bites and clips from the wives and girlfriends this season because before the race, she was, already a little bit stressed out and like pacing and stuff and saying that it was times like this where she wished she married an accountant. And it just, I love this. I was like, oh my God, mood. Like, so funny. So the wives and girlfriends are being so honest and so funny. It's just making me laugh. Um, I also, maybe I didn't realize before, because we all have seen her like with the water bottles and how she, twists them up and all that stuff. But I've never been so stressed out watching someone watch racing before. I was like she was pacing and doing all the stuff, and I was like, oh my God, that is stressing me out more than watching the race itself. Like I can get stressed out about a race, but I was like, I just wow. But like obviously it's super different when, and I've said this before, it's super different watching like your friends. Like yes, you love them and they're your friends, but it's totally different watching your friends than it is watching your spouse. So in like in that sense, like I get it, but I was like, oh, I didn't realize how much she actually paced. Like, damn. Um, Another thing we saw was something that I kind of said, I think I said it after St. Pete, I said that if we can see more battles like that from, or if we do see more battles like that from Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin, then we're going to be in for a really good season. And Barber was, oh my God, I apologize if you guys can hear that. So loud, oh my gosh. At Barber, we just saw so many laps of an incredible battle between Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin. Like the fact that they've kind of both found, like, they found it, like they found their spot, they found like their comfortability in IndyCar, and so they can go battle and go do those things, and that has only been incredible for the fans. Like we are the ones that are benefiting from that, and it is so good. It is top tier. You love to see it, or at least you should, because good battles, and I say this every single week, good battles and more drivers being at the top of their game is never going to be a bad thing. Um, so at the end of that race, the podium was Scott McLaughlin, Grosjean, and Will Power, um, which was actually huge for all of them because we've obviously seen the results and the battles from Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin, but Will Power hadn't been. I mean, he had like a knee kind of season, um, but going into Indy and obviously the month of May, good results at Barber and having that momentum were super important. So that was huge for all of them, especially because, you know, if there's anywhere you, if there's anywhere you need momentum, it's Indy. So that was huge for them. And, hopefully we see that carry over. Um, so yeah, at the end of it, we had four different winners in four races, and it's just so good. It's so good. The sport is like, honestly, I feel like IndyCar is thriving right now in that way, despite what Motorsports Twitter, and by that I mean F1 fans, want to say about IndyCar and their ignorance towards, or sometimes plain rudeness towards the Indy 500 and kind of IndyCar is just as a whole. It it's thriving right now. We're seeing a lot of good stuff, and it's honestly one of those things, like, that's what you hope for. And I think that based on what I've seen, in practice and what we're seeing now, everyone's hungry. The Indy 500 is going to be so good. Like qualifying tomorrow and Sunday, and it's just going to be so good. It is, I think, one of the better times. Like, obviously, every series oh, goes through like ebbs and flows, but I think now is one of the better times to be an IndyCar fan. Um, there is obviously, I don't even know if I want to talk about this. But along, with the Indy 500, just, all the prestige and all of it, it's not just something that people want to go to. It's obviously something everyone wants to drive in. And this year there is going to be I think it's 33 cars. Um, and there's 34 entered, so someone's not going to make it. Um, Yesterday, during practice there was a bit of, I mean, we're going to call it like a non-incident because it wasn't one, but it very well could have been with Pato and RC Anderson. Um, it's just so I think Pato was coming out. Yeah, Pato was coming out and of the I think it was pit exit down to turn one, and I think RC Anderson was trying to get out of the way of faster cars behind him, which in theory it makes sense. Um, the part that doesn't make sense to me, because he's done Indy Lights and he tried to qualify for this race last year, and he has, I think, other experience, maybe like one or two races just in general in IndyCar. I don't understand why he just made the dive and didn't, the spotter stand did kind of like tell him on the radio, like, if the track is busy, you have to, you know, listen for what they're saying up there. Because it was like the closest of close. Like, it would have been bad. It would have taken them both out. It would have been a huge shot. And it was one of those things where I am always, I say this to you guys like every single week. I am always preaching for just being smarter about the moves that you're making on track and just kind of a higher standard of racing, right? And like, I understand it's the Indy 500. Everyone wants to race in this race. Like, you're here because your dad could afford it. Great. But like, I just I understand he passed his rookie orientation or whatever. If we're gonna have these kids that are coming in to do one-offs, and they are kids, and they're not coming off of like a full season doing something else, there has to be some sort of extra, because an extra rule or an extra whatever, because almost taking out one of the top drivers in the series is not it. Like, we just can't do that. Like, it's just these stupid things that happen. Obviously, he didn't do it on purpose. And like I said, like, the thought to get out of the way of like the faster cars behind you, like, that's great. But it's only a great thought if you see it all the way through. If it's just like a I'm doing it type of thing and you just go like he did, then it, doesn't count for anything. But it was really dangerous. It was really close to being something really bad. And those are the things that I think we need to see less of. There's already, without naming names, there's already drivers that I think shouldn't be in this series, or at least one driver that shouldn't be in this series. Um, that is not him. But it's just like, to see the series be like at the top of its game right now, and then to see this, these stupid little things happening, it's just like, ugh. And things are gonna happen, but there's just got to be some more awareness or some more of something, so we're not accidentally, you know, creating dangerous situations. So that was kind of my thing about that. And it was a little bit disappointing. Um, but, you just kind of hope those things, I don't know, happen less, or you don't see anything like that if he does make it into the field for the 500. You hope that you don't see those things. Qualifying, I think, is going to be really close for the people at the bottom based on what I'm seeing today. So it will be interesting to see who does and doesn't make it because one person's not going to, and that's going to suck for them. But I don't know. I hope Catherine Legg makes it though. I was watching, she was the last person I saw before I went live, and I hope that she and the team are able to find a little bit more speed because I would love to see her in this field. Um, but yeah, I think those are just my little like musings and ramblings about the happenings. What else is happening? Oh, this weekend, NHRA Chicago. Um, that's gonna be busy. There's a lot going on in that race. The Too Fast, Too Tasty is I think that's what it's called. The Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge is back for um all four of the professional classes. That's the one where the semifinalists from the last, I don't know if it goes, I don't know how they're doing it because I think the last ones were four wide, so I don't know how they're doing that. Semifinalists from the last race race each other in the two Saturday qualifying sessions. So, like, if Ron Capps and Bob Tasca had raced each other in the semifinals like 3 weeks ago, they're going to race each other again on Saturday, as with the other side of the ladder, and then the winners from that race each other, and then you have your redemption winner. You get money, you get a little medal, you get points. So that's happening. That's back. Um, I think is it Pro Stock or Pro Stock Motorcycle? Let's see. I have notes over here. Oh, I think it's this one. Oh no, it was the other one. Yeah, Pro Stock is doing their call out race, their all star call out race, which is going to be good. Oh, Top Fuel Harley is going to be there as well, doing an exhibition. Which those dudes go so fast. Like I don't know what possesses them to race Top Fuel Harleys, but oof, that's like for me, no. That much speed on two wheels, I can't. Um, Also the Drag and Drive exhibition race, which I'm super excited about because there has been drama behind the scenes with some of the competitors having to build and rebuild their cars, um, namely Alex Taylor and Steve Morris. So that's going to be really, I think, ow, really, I think, a fantastic exhibition. Tom Bailey, Steve Morris, Alex Taylor, Goldstone, Clark, and I always forget who the other three are because I didn't write it down. And I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to look it up. Let's see. Mm, I don't think that was the one I wanted. It's this one. Um, yeah, so it's Alex, Tom, Steve, Goldstone, Clark, Clint Sadowski, uh, Rick Trunken, and Bob Hess Jr. Um, these are some of these are 6 second, 200-mile-an-hour street cars. So you don't want to miss it. These are like some of the best representation for drag and drive. So I think it's going to be really fun. Oh my gosh, yes. That's so funny. I'm just, I was reading the little, on the NHRA website, there is a little piece about all of the drivers and their cars, which actually I'll run through it if you guys don't know. Alex Taylor has her 55 Chevy, which she recently blew the doors off. The doors and the windshields came out, which was crazy. But she got that rebuilt, and then she just had to rebuild her engine essentially, like as they were on the road, which was crazy. She also is co-hosting Hot Rod Garage on Motor Trend right now, and she has her YouTube channel, so definitely watch all the things that she's doing. And then obviously Tom Bailey is like the king of drag and drive, um, with 6 Seconds 2.0. Um, YouTube channel, and Sick the Mag, the premier magazine for drag and drive events. So good, so fun. I love that he did that. And obviously his own drag and drive event, Sick Week. Um, and then Steve Morris, who has become, he's really like made like a name for himself in drag and drive, just not only just like in drag and drive, but in like the social media part of it as well, because he everyone kind of knew him as the engine builder and the guy that was tuning Tom Bailey, because he did and does do those things. And now he has put himself into the ring extra with his own car, his station wagon. This man built a 6 second station wagon. It's called the Boostmaster, and it has one of his, like, he has, obviously since he's an engine builder, he has his own program in his car with his SMX. If you are really into that kind of like the more technical side of engine building and like the behind the scenes and what goes into it, I definitely recommend. He also has incredible merch. Um, and he's just really fun and really personable and really nice. And he did a video recently about kind of like the whole story, his origin story and the story of Steve Morris engines. And I really liked kind of learning the whole journey because we had only seen to that point like bits and pieces, but definitely recommend. Um, let's see. So Goldstone also not he's not new to Drag and Drive world, but this man runs an AMC Javelin, which out of all the things I would ever think to pick, to build a race car and do Drag and Drive with, never would I pick that because I forget it exists just as a car in general, but it's so cool. Like it's so good. Um, I feel like maybe 2014, 2015 was when he debuted it. And since then, obviously been getting better and faster. And he had a situation where last year, maybe the year before, he had blown one of his doors off, which apparently, what happens. In 2021, he did end up rolling the car at Drag Week. He was fine, which is the important part. But since his return to competition last year, he he did it justice with the return. Um, and it's super cool that he stuck with the javelin and didn't like bring anything else out because he totally could have. Um, so Clint Sadowski is one of those, I will admit, one of those names that like I know his name from Drag and Drive, but I don't automatically think of I what he drives. So he runs Pro Street in a beautiful Camaro. Um, I think he'll run like a 760 average, which is really good. His car was actually built by Dennis Taylor, who is Alex Taylor's dad. But Clint used to be a baseball player. He was a pitcher, which in I think it was like the whole decade, like 90, at least 91 to 99. It might have been 1990. Um, but yeah, he was a baseball player, and now he does drag racing, which I think is so fun. But his Camaro is beautiful. Um, Clark is someone who has recently become he is team Steve Morris engines. So Steve built his engine and he will, tune it for him, give him a tune up on at all these, events and all that stuff. He has quickly become one of my favorite people on team Steve Morris engines because with the whole YouTube thing, they want to capture, you know, everything that happens with their team and the drivers, because Steve builds engines for lots of people, but the ones that are really kind of like in his stable on at events for Drag Week and Sick Week and all that stuff are Steve and Clark and uh, his son Kyle, Steve's son Kyle. Um, so they, travel together and like do their stuff together. And Clark's always like, no, don't want to be on camera. And he'll be like hella sassy about it. And more of his personality has been coming out in the past like little bit, which I love. But he has his Camaro, which is a big old heavy car, and um, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's heavy, but it doesn't matter because Steve Morris has given him a giant powerhouse to like do with it. It's got 94 millimeter turbos, y'all. So he can make some power. Um, I've also seen him do the longer events like the half mile and like the mile long just like straights, which is fun because you don't always see these type of cars do that. Typically, if you're building something for drag racing like this, you're just kind of building your car for that. And to see that he's made the car multi-use, I think is pretty sick. Um, let's see. Oh, Rick. I've seen Rick's car. Um, so Rick Trunkett, he has a 72 Duster. It's green. It's actually really nice. It looks stock. You see it and you think, oh, cool, like it's a stock Duster. But I think it runs sevens. He'll run like, let's see. Yeah, career best 778. That's crazy. That'll be really interesting to see who he matches up with because they do a chip draw for the pairings. There's no like real ladder or anything. So if he can maybe go some rounds, that'd be really cool. But I don't know who he matched up with today. And then Bob Hess Jr. Again, one of those names that um I hear in like the Dragon Drive sphere. Um, so he has a Fox Body Mustang, but it's a Hemi. He's got a Gen 3 6.4 liter Hemi, And I think I'm trying to think back to sick week this year. I think he definitely, I think he placed in his class. I think, what does he run, like modified or something? I think he runs modified, but he definitely placed. It was second or third. Um, because he had like a 772 average maybe, and that was enough to give him third place in his class. Um, a cool thing about him is for these drag and drive events, you see everybody driving around with a trailer. He doesn't have one. He, I guess, has the space, whatever space he has, and then he also does a roof rack. So, which I can't even imagine all the crap that you would have to think about bringing and being able to fit it all in without a trailer. Like, it's crazy impressive that he can do that. Um, but on this little sheet, it says his car won quickest without a trailer at Hot Rod Drag Week 2021, which I did not know was an award, but I love it. And that is what's happening in drag racing this weekend. I think it's gonna be so fun. I'm super excited to see it. And then on Monday, because Emu and I are streaming together on Monday, which I still haven't fully figured out what we're doing. So it'll be a surprise for you, just like it will be for me. um, I will have more coverage on the Dragon Drive exhibition and kind of how everything went. And oh, actually, I almost said the thing that popped into my head, but um, it's something else that I want us to do on Monday. So things to look forward to, things I'm excited about. And yeah, I think that is going to wrap it up for this one. Really interested to see how qualifying is going to shake out for the 500. I will be edge of my seat, just like everyone. Um, but yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out and following along. Um, and have a great weekend. Bye, guys.